Thank you all for joining. Okay, thank you all for joining our the first of our June webinar series. This webinar is titled "The Power of Branding." It's the first one of three. The next one is going to be called "Doing More with Less," and that's going to be next week on June 9th. And then we have another one on June 16th, which is Message Received. I'll send you all a link to that as well, so you can sign up for that in the follow-up, and I'll also include one in the chat. Today we have Joe Sanfelippo from Falls Creek School District. He's the superintendent there and also the co-author of The Power of Branding. He'll be presenting for us today and demonstrating how he brands his district, or brands his schools and district in the community, and the importance of that and what it does for them. I'm going to pass it over to Joe right now, who is going to get started and tell us a bit about his story.
All right. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope we have some connected superintendents here or people in leadership positions in districts that are, just either getting started or wherever you're at, is fine. So we're going to go through a couple things today. I hope you can hear me well, and I know how valuable your time is because I sit in the same chair, and I understand the pressures that come along with everything that goes on with the job. And the one thing that I want to make sure that we get when we talk about the power of branding, we talk about what you can do to enhance the pieces in your school district. I don't like when people should all over me, like you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. It's wherever you're at in this process is completely fine, and don't ever apologize for where you're at, because you got to leadership positions by doing a lot of really, really good things. And what this has done for me has helped me to realize the power of telling the story of our school, one, but it's also given me some really great evidence for my board and my community in terms of what happens in the superintendent position. So if at any time I feel like I'm doing that whole you should, just throw that in the chat box and say, hey, back up a little bit, or you're going too fast, or that I don't agree with that, or whatever. Let's try to make this as interactive as we possibly can. You're taking time out of your day to listen to some of the things that we have to say here, but at the same time, it's got to be worth it to you. It's got to be able to resonate with you. And no matter what position you sit in, if you are a school leader, if you are a principal, or if you're a teacher leader, or if you're a superintendent, or you're a director, or you're an assistant superintendent, or you're a director of anything, you all answer to somebody in some respect. So from a superintendent lens, I answer to a 5-member board. And I serve at the will of the board, but at the same time, it's my job to make sure that we get out, get our vision moved forward the best that we can. And in doing that, sometimes we really got to think about what kind of conversations that we're having with the people who oversee what we do to try to influence what, how our job works and that kind of thing. So, we'll kind of go through that, and if you have any questions, throw them in, and we'll talk about it as we go through. So again, my name is Joe Sanfelippo. I'm the superintendent of Fall Creek School District, home of the Fall Creek Crickets. Go Crickets is the hashtag that we use exclusively in our school district. We have kids, teachers, parents, community members all utilizing that hashtag on a regular basis, and we'll talk a little bit more about how powerful that's been as we move forward. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today throughout the course of the webinar. We have an hour to do this. I'm really trying to get to by 1:45, 2:40, about that time we can kind of get through and then have some time for questions, because again, I know how valuable your time is. We just want to make it worth your while. So we're going to talk about why branding is important, what a strong brand can do for you, and how to utilize social media to build your brand and make it successful, and then hopefully have some time at the end. Not hopefully, we will have some time at the end for question and answer if you have any questions, and we'll kind of go from there. So anyway, so why did we start it? What happened to me that made me feel like we wanted to start telling the story of our schools? I would love to tell you that this started out as this real big service project that I really wanted to get the words of our kids out there. But it didn't. It came about because of this little guy it's, 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, when he was 3 years ago, he was a 4K student at the time. And I walked in my first superintendent year, I walked into his classroom, and he looked up at me with these big, big eyes, and he said, "What's your name? What are you doing here? Where's your hair? My dad's better than you. He's got a really big truck." And so, of course, I, did what any superintendent would do. I expelled him. I'm kidding. I hope you're laughing. I did not. But it honestly made me think, like, if this little guy doesn't know what I do, what the superintendent job is, then I'm sure that a lot of people don't. So anything that I could do to try to tell the story of what the superintendent does, it was really important. Fall Creek had 5 superintendents in 6 years before I got into the job. And to be brutally honest, I did not want to be the guy that had to move his family 3, 4, 5, 6 times for career paths because I kept getting bounced around. And when it comes down to superintendent decisions, if you think about it from a superintendent lens, there's not a lot of superintendents that get bounced out of jobs because of curriculum decisions that they make. A lot of times we as superintendents, people question what we do because they don't know what we do. And it was my job, the visibility is a huge piece of why there's so much pressure on superintendents. And we can say that that's right or wrong. The fact is that, in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. If they think that you move papers from one side of the desk to the other, and that's what they believe you to do because that's what the superintendent did when they were in school, then that's not fair to you. And we had to figure out a way that we could get people invested and involved and talk about this, and then also show the visibility and show what we were doing from a superintendent lens. When I interviewed in Fall Creek, I said to the, I was sitting in the interview, and I said to them, this is my first superintendent job, or my first superintendent interview actually, and I had about 6 years experience as a principal. And I said, I may not be the best superintendent that you hire, but I promise you I will be the loudest. So if there are things going on that are awesome in this school district, I can promise you that people will know about them. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to know that we could get the word out there and do things for kids and get the word out to the community and celebrate the work that we were doing. And so it's been a really, really good marriage with the board because, I'm super loud. And when things are going on, I can shout them to multiple places. But not only am I super loud from an actual super loud standpoint, I love the idea of utilizing these social tools to be able to get the word out to as many people as we can and really grow that process throughout the course of our time here. So when we talk about branding, see, we got some really good, when my friend Tony Sinanis, who is a principal on Long Island in New York, was the New York State Principal of the Year last year. He's the co-author of the book with me, and we also wrote a book on principal professional development that talks a lot about the same kind of thing. But the pushback that we got about the book had nothing to do with telling the story of kids. Everybody really kind of buys into that process of being out there and celebrating the work of kids. But the term branding really, really kind of got people thinking that, is that really what we're about? Are we about branding? We shouldn't be about branding because that's what marketers do. We're not marketing kids. Why are we talking about this? And from our perspective, branding isn't about selling kids. It's not about selling false promises and false ideas. What happens with your brand is your identity, whoever you are as a school district, that becomes your brand. Our brand became our hashtag Go Crickets and everything that went along with Go Crickets and moving forward and everything that went along with our vision. That became our brand. And once we found out what our brand was, it was really important to get that brand out there because, just like any marketing tool, if you're the only one that knows about what you're doing, the message isn't going to get to where you want it to go. So what branding is, so if you're having a hard time with the term branding, that's okay because people do. Think about it as your identity, what promoting your identity can do for you. And if you think about it that way, it gives you just a little bit of a different lens overall. But creating a school brand or a school identity is really, really important. So what this has done for us is it has helped us to create a real strong identity for what we're doing in our school district and how we can promote the positive things that are going on within the context of our daily scenario. It also allowed us to really come together as a group behind one simple hashtag that we use on our social media feeds and be able to promote that out, so it's not just me telling the story of schools. It's everybody telling the story through whatever lens that they have, through a student lens, through a staff lens, through a parent lens, through a teacher lens, through our food service lens. Whatever the lens is, we've been using the Go Crickets hashtag to be able to push all that stuff, and we push it right to our district webpage and we get a lot of great feedback from that perspective. It does, obviously establishes a positive image when it comes to the things that we do, and does provide timely information for our schooling community, and that's really an important component. The biggest thing, honestly, if we can go beyond what happens in Fall Creek, which is hard to do sometimes because it's an amazing place to live and work, but if I can get beyond that, it's really, honestly, it's about, if we can develop a strong brand presence and a strong identity, we can honestly change the narrative of what schools really look like. It can honestly be transparent or transformative if we're transparent with what happens. For years, people have been talking about what education is today, and they're doing it based on a lens that they had when they were in school. So if a guy or a girl, if somebody is upset that they didn't get a second chicken sandwich at lunch, or they got put against the wall for recess for doing something they shouldn't have done, that's the story that they're telling about your school. And if we allow that to happen, that's on us, right? That's not fair to my second grader. It's not fair to my fifth grader. It's not fair to my eighth grader. My second grader they're connecting with people all across the world through Skype and Google Hangout. My fifth grader is doing the same thing. Our kids use augmented reality. Our kids are utilizing drone technology. All of these things are happening in our school. But if the story that's being told is the fact that we sat in desks and rows and answered a bunch of questions on a worksheet because that's what happened 15 years ago, then it's on us because we're not counteracting the image that's being placed out there by somebody who has no connection to what's happening in our school district. And it makes me, I'm really passionate about it because it's not fair to any of the kids that are sitting in your classrooms, any of the teachers that are sitting in your classrooms right now, where amazing things are happening every day. It's not fair to have the story being told by somebody who has no affiliation to what's going on in that school. And so it's on us to find a way that brand promise, that brand experience that we want people to have, that identity that we have as a school, is promoted throughout the course of what we do on a regular basis. So hopefully through that we can kind of get to where we're going, and hopefully all together work on something that's even better. Anyway, so let's think about the top three sources where parents gather their own information. Okay. The 33%, that's where they get their information, news and websites. That's not even your regular. That's a regular news site. That's not even your district site. Right now, this is such an untapped resource because a lot of people are getting their news source from places that we can live. We can live in these spots. If you think about the fact that people are using news websites more than they're using television to get their information, well, let's tap into what that really, that untapped resource about, in terms of what we do, okay? I will tell you this. There has never, ever been a person in life that has gone home at the end of the day and said, I can't wait to look at the district website. Nobody has ever said that in the world, okay? That has nothing to do with what's on your district website. There are amazing things on our district website. We have so much information there. But nobody goes home and says, I can't wait to go browse the district website, okay? Having said that, the information on there is so good, we've got to be able to find ways to push it to those spots. And if we can do that, we're in a really, really good place. If we think about these from a school perspective, we utilize, in Fall Creek, we utilize all of these things in some capacity, okay? We utilize our website, and we have a great website that I think is pretty easily navigated, with everything being just 2 clicks away, and hoping that they can get to all the feeds that they need to in a very quick amount of time. We use television. We use ensemble video, and we call it our Cricket TV. and we broadcast a lot of things. We live stream a lot of stuff, and and parents love that. And to be honest, parents love it, but grandparents love it even more. Since we've started doing that, I get multiple cards every year, or emails, or calls from grandparents and family members across the country that just honestly will call and say, I just wanted to thank you because I got to see the concert that I would have missed. I just want to thank you because I got to see the game that my grandson was playing in, and I wouldn't have been able to get there. And that's been amazing for me, and certainly worth the time and effort that we use to put it in there and get the word out that way. We utilize podcasts. We have a Go Crickets podcast that features some of the things that we're doing. We've had basketball teams on there. We've had 4K students talking with. We have a YTY program, a youth tutoring youth program. That one should actually come out this week. We've talked to students who have excelled in their career at Fall Creek. We've talked to students who have not excelled and who have struggled, and had them tell their story as well. So we try to utilize that on a podcast that comes out. It's not a regular podcast at this point, but we're hoping to get it to that point hopefully soon. We also use print media. We use the Cricket Chirp comes out on a quarterly basis, and we send that to all of our constituents and try to figure out ways that we can connect with everybody. There's really no silver bullet to how you can connect and communicate with students. You have to be pretty far-reaching in terms of trying to get to places where everybody lives. And the more that you can get, the more areas that you can get to, not the more social media tools, because we're going to talk about that in a minute, but the more areas that you can get to connect, that's really important. And when it comes to print media, from a newsletter standpoint, student newsletters that go home on Friday, I am completely guilty of this. If my daughter from her second grade teacher gets a newsletter that goes home on Friday, I will read that newsletter, but I'm probably going to read it Sunday night or Monday morning, okay? Does that make me a bad dad? I don't know. But at the same time, there's a lot going on. So we get to that point where I still get it read, but it comes out pretty late. The updates we get throughout the course of the week, because they pop into my email or I find them on Twitter or whatever, I'm much more likely to connect and communicate because they're in real time for me. Having said that, there's a certain population of our community that needs and wants that print media, right? 80% of families in your community do not have kids in school. So trying to find a way to connect that brand to those people is really important. And that's what we use print media for as well. But having said that, the senior generation in particular is the fastest growing generation on Twitter right now. That's really cool to me. That stat came from Eric Qualman, actually, who has a great video on the power of social media and what it really means for us moving forward. So we utilize all of these spaces. We want to make sure we live in those spaces, but at the same time, we want to diversify to make sure that it works for everybody involved and invested in the process. So when we think about where we want to put where we want to make sure that we live, the first thing that we did with our community is try to figure out where everybody lives virtually, right? The majority of our parents live on Facebook. Now, Facebook is not my favorite social media tool. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all what my favorite social media tool is. It matters what our district, favorite is, what people are looking at. And Facebook is still the king of of where people are at, specifically the people that have kids in school. Okay. Now, the Twitter group. The most users when it comes to Twitter are people ages 18 to 35 right now, right? That's the group that's got kids coming through or will have kids coming through in the future. So that's a presence that you want. But as it sits right now, Facebook is still the king of what you want to get done, right? At this point, we look at 71% of adults on Facebook, utilize Facebook. 63% utilize that once per day. So if I was to say to you, I have a tool that's going to allow you to get to 71% of your population and 63% daily, you'd probably look at me and say, oh, yep, I want that. I definitely want that, right? Because I want to get this information out. This is the tool right now, okay? it might not be the tool in the future, but we're talking about making sure that this is a mindset change. We're talking about telling the story of schools through a mindset change. This is the tool that works right now. Having said that, it might not be the tool in the future. So being mobile in that regard is really, really important. Just in terms of the growth of Facebook, if you think about this, this is fascinating to me that we use this as the vehicle to push because that's where most of the people are. In 2011, there were 700,000 status updates sent per minute in 2011. In 2013, there were 2.4 million status updates sent per minute on Facebook. So this is an absolutely, I mean, obviously it's a growing, it continues to grow exponentially, right? It's definitely the most popular social media app on smartphone platforms, and it allows us to be able to live in the space that they're at on a regular basis, which is definitely a place that we want to be, right? And if people are getting their news there and it's already a place that they live, then we have to live in that place because it makes it easier for them. And if we are doing everything that we can to connect where they're at, then it's really important for us to say, okay, we have to live where they are, right? And if we can live where they are, we're going to be in a really good place. And this, when I talked to you at the beginning about, not wanting to, should this, should that, should this, should that, I look at these stats and I don't look at them as, oh my goodness, what's going on here? I look at them as what an opportunity for growth. 20% of school leaders are using social media regularly, okay? And we're all doing a really good job in our school district, right? The things that are going on in your school district are astounding. And I'm sure they are because schools across the country are doing great things, but that's not the narrative that's being told. So if we can find a way to increase these numbers and be part of, be in these spaces, the great things that are going on in school are going to get into the media, into the hands of people, into the ears of people across the board in all areas where we can now celebrate as a group. This is, to me, just another untapped resource. If 20% of school leaders use social media regularly, what if it was 30%, right? What if it was 40%? If it's 40%, if we double that number and we understand that, the great things that are happening right now and are being told, and I see a lot of stuff going on across the board, if that could double, oh my goodness. I mean, the power of that tool, it's fantastic. So if we can utilize that, then I think we're going to be in a really, really good spot. And from my perspective, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, I started utilizing this really to save my job, to keep my job going. And when you are the highest paid person in your school district, there are going to be judgments made about you. And it's just, that is it. That's what it is. And we can try to refute that, or we can say, yep, that's the way it is. So let's try to figure out, instead of allowing people to tell us what we do or tell other people what we do, get out and tell them so people know and understand. Like I said, in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. So when they make up their own, if we don't allow them to make up their own and we find a way that we're the ones telling the story and taking control of that narrative, then we're really in a good spot. And I think the other thing that it does is it builds a tremendous amount of social capital when it comes to what you do in your job. I promise you at some point something will go wrong. And something has gone wrong for me multiple times since I've been in Fall Creek. Case in point. So we had a bus that was late about 3 months ago. Had a bus that was late. It was going to be a couple minutes late getting home, right? And so I wrote a letter. I used the notification. I actually used the notification app in the Parent Link, the Blackboard app that we use. And I wrote, hello everyone, just wanted to let you know that the duck bus is going to be 15 minutes late. Well, when I wrote hello everyone, I forgot the O in hello. So I sent out to 945 families, hell there, everyone. I got 0 negative feedback from anybody. Actually, that's not true. I got a call from a 4th grade teacher who couldn't control himself because he was laughing so hard. That was it. Beyond that, nobody called and said, who's the imbecile running this school district that can't even send out an email, right? because to that point, people know what I do. So when I make a mistake like that, that's, if, you know, I have enough social capital built up that can help out, right? The other thing was we had a threat to school in late February, and we got the threat, and that somebody was going to be harmed at our school. It was we didn't know if the threat was credible. We had gone over and over, and I didn't have enough information, and I finally, at 7:25 in the morning, kids are on buses, kids are on their way to school. Some people are at school. At 7:25, from my phone, I canceled school, said we needed more information, had all the kids sent home, made sure that there was a responsible adult in the place that they were dropped off, had a plan in place in that regard, messed up everybody's day for a threat that we didn't know if it was real or not. We just needed more information. And the feedback that I got from that was simply thank you. And when I asked people about the communication, it was everybody was on board. They just, you know, obviously they want their kids safe, but they were willing to and understanding that we have built up enough social capital to be in a place where when things don't go really smoothly and we're going to call school off at 7:25 and people are already there, then we get enough social capital built up that we can move forward. All right. The other pieces here are, from a blog perspective, I don't blog as regularly as I would like to because, like the everyday things happen and I have a lot of thoughts that I want to try to get out. The more that we can do that and connect with each other, we are really isolated. Everybody that sits in the superintendent chair is isolated in some regard. Even if you have a cabinet, you are still the person that makes the final decision and it has to report to the board. So we're all kind of in these silos, and if we can connect these silos and connect the learning with each other, I think we're going to be in a much better place overall. The other thing that it does for us when it comes to utilizing social media and building the social capital is it really connects our board to the community, and that's been a really fantastic thing for us in particular. So this, again, is an opportunity, and I guess I don't look at these numbers as thinking, oh my goodness, what are we doing here? I look at these numbers as, can you imagine if we add to those numbers the kind of movement that we could get with schools and families and communities? Because right now I think we're relying on word of mouth to tell the story of our school, and if we were relying on something else, so we could really get to a different place and help utilize, talk about what's going on in our school through some of these tools, we're going to be I just think we're going to be in a much better place. Okay, so our board is phenomenal. I love our board. Our board is, and we've had turnover on our board, and every time, over the course of the last 3 years, one of the things that we do when we turn over our board is to make sure that people understand why we're there and what we're doing. And what we're doing, from a district perspective. We literally have 3 board goals. That's it. Our board goals are: it's always about we always keep our dirty laundry in-house, and we never give up the opportunity to say something great about our school. Always about we, always keep our dirty laundry in-house, and we never give up the opportunity to say something great about our school. Those 3 things. That's it. And it's really easy to train board members because those are the 3 things that we hold the most dear. Being a board member, honestly, not an awesome job. It's not. It's not a great job because when it comes to board discussions, and our high school principal says this all the time, it's honestly, if it doesn't have to do with beans, buses, or balls, the board doesn't hear about it. If it doesn't have to do with food service, transportation, or athletics, the board often does not hear about what's going on, right? That's what they get talked to about the most. This gives them something to brag about. They're still going to get those questions. They're still going to be asked about beans, buses, and balls. At the same time, they're also going to be talked to about the great things that are going on. We view social media as the new fridge. When I was a kid, I would do something in class, it would go home, it would go on the fridge, all right? And my mom would like look at it, people would come over, they'd look at the fridge, they'd ask questions about, oh, hey, Joey, I see Joey's doing this, or Joey's doing that, or my sister's doing this. Social media has turned into the new fridge. And if we're able to make sure that we can get all the great things going on into the hands, into the ears, into the lives of other people, we're going to be in a really, really good spot. So give your board something to brag about, and if you do that, then they're still going to get the other questions, but they're also building social capital because people are starting to trust them more. And when they trust them more, honestly, they're going to trust you more. So the world of social media is crazy, and one of the things that we get asked all the time are, where do you find the time? What tools do you use? If you look at all of these things going on, it can get overwhelming. All right, it can definitely get overwhelming. We do not use all the social media tools. We use these tools minus Pinterest, which is a summer project of ours, but we use Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr, and our district app to tell the story of our school. And in doing that, it really has helped us. Let me go back to this real quick. In doing that, it really has helped us, find places where people live. We talked a little bit about Facebook and the number of users in Facebook, but the same exponential growth has happened with Twitter, YouTube, Twitter and YouTube in particular. In 2011, there was 100,000 tweets sent per minute. Now there's 300,000 tweets sent per minute. 25 hours of video were uploaded per minute in 2011. Now 75 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube. And so what we've been trying to do is try to figure out how to utilize these tools and push so it's not really, it doesn't feel like it's one more thing all the time, right? So the other thing that we utilize on a regular basis is Instagram. And Instagram is a great tool because it allows you to push to Twitter, Facebook, and Flickr all from one spot, right? So I can post a picture on Instagram, send it right out to all of our other feeds, and then it's not one more step for me, which has turned into a really big time saver for me. And that's something that I'll definitely continue to do. We stream our Twitter feed throughout the course of the day. We have big, like 50-inch screens, 50-inch screens that go throughout the school. I think we have 5 of them. And on those screens, we either have our Flickr streaming, where we can have pictures of kids that are doing things in classrooms, or we have our Twitter feed streaming in terms of what we're doing on a regular basis, so people can see what's going on with Go Crickets across the board. The things that we've taken on when it's come to telling the story of schools are, I truly, honestly believe it comes down to 4 things. And if you can do these 4 things well, you're going to be in a really, really good spot, all right? The first thing is know your message. If you do not have an identity, that's got to be the first thing. That identity ends up helping you build your brand. So like we mentioned before, your brand is built on your identity. So understand that everybody in your space has to know your message. And if they're thinking about, if you ask them what the message is and they don't know it, then you got to revisit that piece first. You walk into our elementary school, you ask a kindergartner or a 5th grader, what's the vision of Fall Creek Schools? They will tell you it's a community that works, learns, and succeeds together. That's a known message. And if it goes back to that known message, now you're in a really good spot because everybody's talking about the same message, which is the next one. Tell the same message across your school. If everybody's telling the same story, you're in a really good spot. If not, the people that should be the biggest proponents of what you do in your school, your staff and your families, end up being critical because they don't know what's going on. So live in that space where everybody knows and understands the vision and can move it forward. And if you do that, then people can understand or can tell the same story. Sharing your message we talked about. Social media feeds that we share our message are really important because that's where people are living. And if you find places where people live and you can tell the story where people live, now you're in a really good spot. If you can't find those places, now you're just talking, into white space and you can't get through. And you can't get through it because you never know, who you're talking to at that point. And the last thing is, how do you differentiate your school from neighboring schools or districts? What's different about what you do and what's unique about you? One of the things that we talk a lot about, one of my friends, Joe Mazza, works for Penn in Philadelphia, and we had him on our Brand Edge show months ago. And one of the things that he said to us is, I know more about your school district than I know about schools in my own district. And that's not the way it should be. If people know more about your district than they do about their own, they're going to tell somebody that, okay? And if people know more about things going on in Fall Creek than they do about their own district, then it's probably okay for us. But at the same time, shouldn't we be celebrating the work that's done in the districts that you're in? You want to celebrate. You want to brag about it. If you're looking at stuff and you're seeing what we do, then you're probably thinking, hey, we could do that too. And we could celebrate that too and just develop that social capital that goes along with it. One of the ways that we did that was we utilized our Facebook feeds to make sure that we could create some excitement around the story. So the first time that we ever used Facebook to tell the story of schools was at a football game. And I sent out a message on Facebook and Twitter that said, the first 5 people that can come and find me at the football game and tell me the vision of Fall Creek Schools get a t-shirt. Okay. So I walk into the football game and I get mobbed by a bunch of kids. And the kids are screaming and yelling, we're a community that works and succeeds together. And it was awesome. And I loved it. And I'm throwing t-shirts all over the place. You got them, you got them, you got them, it's fine. So I do the same thing the next week at the next football game. First 5 people to find me and tell me the vision of Fall Creek Schools get a t-shirt. I walk into the football game, kids start running up to me as they did the week before, but now adults start running up to me, start kicking kids out of the way because they want the gear too, right? Everybody wants gear. Everybody wants to be part of something bigger. This did 2 things for me. First thing it did for me is let me know that parents and kids were having conversations about school at home. I knew it, but I wanted to make sure that we could hope that. But instead of saying to students, like a student, students go home all the time in places all over the country, and they're asked, what did you do at school today? And the answer is inevitably nothing or not much or whatever. The conversation now changes for us. And the conversation is now, hey, I saw on Twitter or I saw on Facebook that you were launching rockets today. Tell me more about that. I saw that you and your class connected with a first grade classroom today. Tell me more about that. It changes the narrative of something it changes the narrative that you have with your kids at the dinner table or the car or wherever you're having conversations with your kids. It changes that narrative. The other thing that we did, and this was the visual shows you, we had done that same first 5 moms to find me. We did it at our Muffins with Mom celebration. But I love the reaction from the mom and the student, right? And the first one says, that's what Jordan says because she's the one that told her. And then we won a t-shirt and Jordan loved it. So now we've got another connection. The thing we do with the high school kids is we do Find It Friday stickers in the high school. Finding your gas card and a t-shirt. Who can ever find it, tweet, post it, bring it to the office, whatever. We just hide a sticker somewhere and then go from there. And if you can continue to utilize those tools to do that and connect with those kids, they end up being your biggest advocates. A couple of really great, one really great example of that is Jason Markey's group at Leiden High School. And Leiden does a phenomenal job of using Leiden Pride as their hashtag. And they have student-run accounts, they have student blogs that tell the story of Leiden. And that's a really cool thing. And I think that, if you have any questions for him, he's certainly somebody to reach out to as well. So we have 800 students in our school district. We have 900, actually there was 900 at the beginning of the year, so I'm sure it's more now, over 900 downloads of our mobile app right now. People still use it to get academic information and calendars and schedules. Calendars and schedules, to me, are the most valuable piece of the app because you can download a school district event right to your phone. And if people are living in a mobile world, which they are, then we need to live in that world. I think that if you're looking for what you're going to do in the future with your school district, the one thing that I would tell you, besides finding a way to connect on those social media platforms that people are living, is find a way to be mobile. However you do that, whether that's with an app, whether that's with a mobile, a site that can be mobilely viewed, we love the app. The app works fantastic. But whatever you can do to be mobile, that's truly important because that's where people are living. People are living on their cell phones, on their smartphones. People are choosing smartphone plans at home with hotspots instead of buying cable DSL hookups because they can carry it around wherever they want to go, right? So it's really important to find a way to live mobily. And if you can live mobily, you're going to be in a really good spot. But, from our perspective right now, social media through the mobile, that we're accessing through the app, social media is not a really big piece of that right now. I think it will be as we move into, and we're going to talk a little bit about sociability in a little bit, but I think it will be. But right now, anything that we tweet out, anything that we send on Facebook goes right to our app and streams on the front page, which really gets our message out as we move forward as well. The mobile presence that you have, or that we can find, I think is a game changer. I really do. I honestly believe that if we find a way to live, not only are we going to live socially where they live, but we're going to be able to find a place where that not only are they living socially from like a social media perspective, but people live on their phones. And I think a lot of people think, well, that's creating this antisocial society. And I would argue that it's not antisocial. I would argue that it's just different social. When I was a kid, I would play like Tetris or Mario Bros. Whatever on my Game Boy, and I was playing on my own. Now my sons play, either Clash of Clans or they play, whatever, Minecraft or whatever, but they're playing with other people. So their social world their gaming has turned into social world, and that's something that we really, need to live in and understand. And the more that we can get ourselves into that world, the better, and because that's where we're all living. So what we did was we really tried to invest in what we did, not only from a time perspective, but we took our Go Crickets hashtag and we literally put it on everything. And we have a budget designated for T-shirts and gear and backpacks and frisbees and stress balls and umbrellas and chargers and man, I'm just looking around thinking what else we have. We have bracelets and tattoos and all of these things that like binder clips, whatever. Anything that you can get your hashtag on and understand that that's where we're living, get it out there. And if we're a $9 million budget, which is not obviously in terms of comparatively speaking to some of the school districts that are out there, that is not a large budget. And I have zero problem spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on gear to get the work, to get that information, to get that pride into the community. We give away so much stuff. Football games, basketball games, concerts, whatever. We give away a ton of stuff. And it has been worth every penny of the investment to get this thing rolling, because when I see kids across the village wearing stuff or utilizing stuff that says has hashtag Go Crickets, or I see a car driving down the street that has a hashtag Go Crickets on it, that word is getting out into the school, which is really, really an important component of what we do. So we have really enjoyed that process throughout the course of our time. Finally, when it comes to the community engagement, like we had mentioned, the Blackboard, they can kind of talk to you a little bit about the solution to it. I'm going to let them talk in just a minute, but all of these areas are areas that we've felt really strongly about finding ways to connect with families. And if we can do that, we're in a really good place. So I don't know, Shani, if you want to take it over and have that discussion, you certainly can.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. So this is a little bit about Blackboard's community engagement solution. I'll go briefly, I'll speak a little bit about this, and then I'll speak a little more about the Blackboard sociability product that we have that Joe mentioned. So the community engagement solution, it's a comprehensive suite of communication technologies consisting of website technology, so this is your district, school, and classroom websites. And then we have your notification technologies, which are the technology you use to communicate emergencies and everyday information such as attendance, library, or lunch balances, or homework assignments. And then we have the mobile app, which Joe actually talked quite a bit about. This is a custom branded mobile app for your school or district. It's a parent app, and it basically enables parents to get everything school related, all the updates that they need right onto their mobile device. And then we have our Blackboard sociability product, which is a social media management tool. So I'll talk a little bit about this, but we also, we do have a demo that occurs every other week. And you can register by clicking this link. I'll also put the link in the chat just in case it doesn't work for everyone. But basically, we really designed the Sociability app specifically for K-12 because we realized that there are a lot of challenges that K-12 districts have when managing their social media presence and telling their story. So it primarily targets 4 different areas. The first one is monitoring. That's a huge challenge. A lot of school districts and schools have dozens of different social media accounts, and it's just hard to keep track of what's going on. So with Sociability, everything happening in everything that your schools and district groups post will be on one single interface. And then it really helps you discover what parents, students, and community members are saying about your school or district. It's hard to filter through all the questions and all the posts about your district. What Sociability does, every time there's a question, it'll bring that right up to the top of the app so you can respond to it immediately. And it just helps you prioritize and manage your responses as well. You can program particular individuals that you want to follow and identify influential people in your community that you need to make sure you're monitoring and make sure you're participating in conversations with. So it'll help you organize those posts right to the app as well. And then I know there was a question in the chat about guidelines and making sure that people aren't posting inaccurate information. With the Sociability app, you can post your guidelines right to the application itself and the web interface. So whenever a school leader has a question about if they should respond to a particular post or if they should even post anything to begin with, they can refer to your guidelines because they have easy access inside the app. So you're welcome to come to one of our demos and learn more about this. I believe I posted it. Yeah, I posted it in the chat, so just click on there and register. Joe, I know we have about 10 minutes left. Are there any? I saw quite a few questions that came in through the chat. Do you want to? Do you want to answer those?
Yeah, we can do that. So a couple questions that came up that I had mentioned in the chat are, how long did this process take to get going? It was about a year before we saw it, like, you know, people really jumping on, and the number of likes and the number of connections really work forward. My advice is to, like, just, you know, celebrate what you know and what you know you do well. And if you can do that first, like, that gets the momentum going. And if you can do that, you're in a really, really good place, because I wouldn't take on all of the social media feeds right away. I would just, like, okay, so we're going to concentrate on Facebook and Twitter and just go from there. Or we're going to concentrate on, you know, Facebook and Instagram and go from there, or whatever the case may be. And if that's the tool. The thing about the tools is the tools are going to change. We're talking about a mindset shift here. When I'm in a classroom, I'm still in a classroom, and but I leave by taking a picture, posting something that happened there, and then I move on. So we talk to our administrators and our staff about the fact that we can change culture 30 seconds at a time. That's all it takes to post something in your you know, in your feed. If you can do it in 30 seconds. Once you get the handle of it, you can change the culture of your school in that 30 seconds. The other thing that was asked, well, first of all, Nancy, I'd love to. Let me know. Get in touch. We'll talk about going to Nashville. I'd love to. The other thing that was asked was, how do you know, kind of combat the dark side of social media? And what we try to do is if somebody asks me or posts something on there that's like slamming the district a little bit, I choose to answer it, unless it's about a specific staff member or a specific incident. That I'll answer and say, just give me a call and I would love to talk to you about this, and then I put my number in there. And then if they come back, which hasn't happened yet, but if they come back and go again, I would just say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this. Haven't heard from you. Let me know when we want to set up a time. I would love to talk to you. This is not the place that we're going to have this conversation. And then I just leave it alone at that. So we've been really responsive. We've had 2 negative posts since we started in 2011. I chose to answer both of them. And one went well, and the other one just kind of fell off to the side. But the one thing that we did with both is we honestly tried to bury it in terms of, are there positive things that we can promote right now? Because that feed then tends to drop. The one that was getting, if they're angry about something, if you can almost play the positive side of it and get more positive posts up there, it gets lower on the feed, and then it gets tend to get kind of missed. So that's good. The next question was, are we using students on websites, photos of students and that kind of thing? So yes, we are. The thing that we think about is we have an opt-out policy in terms of like if students don't want to be involved in the promotion of the district, they can opt out at any time. So we have a list of kids that have opted out and families who have opted out, and that is completely fine. We also tend to get a lot of angles in terms of like not full faces or that kind of thing, just off to the side and in their work, and try to celebrate it in that regard. We only use first names if we use names at all, except during athletic events, which are public events that people are at anyway. We'll say who scored, how many they scored, that kind of thing. But when it comes to like the safety of students in where they're at, one of the things that I consider is that there's a map to our school. I mean, if people wanted to get to our school, they're going to get to our school. They know exactly where the address is. They know. I mean, our times are posted when kids are outside. We just do everything we can to try to keep people, invested in and understand that we're trying to keep people as safe as possible. The other thing that the question was about cyberbullying and that kind of thing. We're teaching kids at a very young age about their digital footprint, and we're teaching kids about what it really means to be a digital citizen. And so, those things happen, but they also know that we live in those spaces. So if they know that I live on Instagram, and they know that I live on Twitter, and that if something happens, I'm going to get notified of it, they tend to pull back a little bit because they know that I'm out there. Even if they block me from their feed, that doesn't mean I can't get to it. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that one. Making students, I think so. Okay. Are there user groups for media specialists in school districts to share their experiences, how-tos? Okay. So in our group, what we do is I hold multiple optional activities for people. I am not like the Twitter police. Like, I don't walk into somebody's room and say, you should really use Twitter, because it's got to be their decision to do it. And if I'm the only one telling the story of our school and that's how it started, then you know what, great, that's fine, because I feel like I need to be the what Eric Scheninger calls the storyteller in chief of the school. And so if I can do that, if I can get that word out there, then I think that that's my responsibility. Having said that, the positive strokes that our teachers are getting from parents when they post are really the thing that's driving everything that goes on in classrooms. So we don't, I don't have like a specific user group media specialist, but if you want to find our media specialist on Twitter, she's at FCBookGal, G-A-L, and she's wonderful if you want to connect with her. So in terms of using YouTube, we connect short video clips that we send out on a pretty regular basis when it comes to just things going on in school. Tony Sinanis is a fantastic example of how to utilize YouTube updates, video updates for kids. Brad Gustafson is also a great example for how to use YouTube updates for kids, and that's great. Any other questions while I got you?
So looks like that's all we have for now. And that's perfect because we're almost at time.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that it's been great. Last question about streaming. We use a program called Ensemble, who we use through. It's a regional agency called CISA 10. If you want to look up CISA 10 Ensemble, if you want to Google that, you'll be sent to a guy named John Goodman, and he can help you out. But if there's anything else that I can do to help, one of the things that we do is we try to get into school districts and we do like a 3-part series on how to build momentum and move things forward. And so we set up action plans with people, and then we come back, 4 weeks later, and then we come back 4 weeks later to try to build action plans and momentum to get that story out there. So if anybody's interested in that, it's certainly something that that I love doing. So just let me know.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And we have recorded this session, so we will circulate the recording right after the call, or within the next day or two. There's also going to be a blog post which summarizes everything that was talked about during this webinar.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate everybody jumping in, and I hope it was a positive experience. If there's anything that I can do for you, obviously you can find me wherever, but if you want to find me on Twitter, I'll put my Twitter handle in there, and you can certainly jump in at any time.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
All right, guys. Have a great day. Take care.